Well, hello again. This is a review of my own personal, actually. This is a 2020 Honda VFR1200X Crosstourer. This being one of the later ones. This is in the special edition colours, which is the metallic candy red plus the black. I think that's all the differences actually for the final edition one. This being a 2020 model, they didn't change them from 2018 onwards. There's basically two versions. The early one, which is 2013, I believe it started, which has got a fixed screen and a very slightly different shaft drive, which was subject to a recall by Honda not long after they were introduced. There's a very slightly different display to the later ones, which this is. There doesn't seem to be too much on YouTube about these, and I've had this now for a year, exactly a year actually, and covered just over 4,500 miles. It's not really worth discussing reliability because it's a Honda. It's been absolutely perfect, no issues at all, not even one. So let's cover this as a front to back because there's a fair bit to get through. I'm going to be fairly honest with this. First question, what is the Crosstourer? Well, it's Honda's version of a GS, let's be honest. It's exactly what it is. Shaft drive. It is a 1250 V4 or 1237 to be honest. The engine was taken from the F Sportster. Difference for this is the firing order was changed to mimic a twin. It even sounds like a GS, to be honest. It's so similar to a GS in target audience, I guess. As I said, it will be a fairly honest one. There's some very strong positives to this bike, but there's also three major negatives. Had I have known them before it, would I have bought it? Question mark. So let's start from the front to back then. As you can see, it's lovely and sunny out here. Actually, it's New Forest. It's 7th November, I think. So let's start front to back then now. Brakes originally started on the Flintstones car, I think. They've been around for donkey's years. The VFR1200 used them. They're the 3-piston sliding caliper linked. Essentially exactly the same as they have been for many, many years. Now the wheels on this themselves are absolutely incredible quality. I have had a GS, and no great surprise, the quality on this is in a different league to the GS. And if I'm honest, it's the main reason I bought it. I appreciate it's going to upset a few GS owners, but sorry guys, the build quality is in a different league. ABS rings, obviously for the ABS it's Euro 4 compliant, 3 10mm discs on the front. Brakes have got a lot of weight to stop, which we'll come back to later on, but the brakes are, I would say, acceptable, no more than that. They've got the standard Honda pads obviously, which I've always found to be on my other Hondas, Blackbirds, VFRs, Blades, all of them. Standard Honda pads are actually very, very good. Tyres, Battle Wing BW501s on this, 19-inch front. I've had this right down, and some faster times. The tyres are brilliant, no complaints at all. Again, standard fitment from the factory. The forks, although they look fairly spindly, are actually 42, 43mm I think, but they just are very, very long, and they've got a fair bit of travel on them. This not having a power lever like the BMW, it does dive and bounce around a fair bit. It is something that, it's not particularly bad for this bike, it's the fact that GS, with its slightly unusual front end, is so good. This is no different to any other big adventure bike really, apart from the GS. They've got a strange level of adjustment. They are preload and rebound damping rather than compression, which is slightly different. In common with a lot of factory forks or standard forks, the adjustment range is fairly minimal really. It's not until you get to your race type suspension or high-end suspension they make a big difference. Forks are, just giving that our rating out of 10, I'd say a 7 out of 10. They are on the softer side. Then once you wind them up a little bit, say 2 up, they do get a little bit confused over particularly rough ground, but we'll come back to a bigger issue with that later on. Now In terms of overall styling, I'd give this bike a 9 out of 10. I think it's a fantastic looking machine. And if I'm honest, certainly one of the reasons I bought it over the GS. Price being another one. So this cost me just under 12,000, which is a lot of money for a bike, and I appreciate that. Honda would not budge on the price, not even 50p, they wouldn't budge. So I said, okay, I want a top box as part of the deal, which being a Honda is about 400 quid. It is key matched. The main stand, I wanted delivery as well as part of the deal, which Honda were happy to do. So it's giving you a good look around the front end of it. The headlight is standard halogen, not LED, although the indicators are LED, as is the rear light and brake light, obviously. Now the screen is adjustable, this being a later one. So this is one of the first criticism I've got with the bike. The screen adjusts from shockingly poor to completely unacceptable. It is a known issue with the Crosstourer. The wind turbulence is absolutely outrageous. It's, to be honest, probably the worst point of the bike. Screens do make a difference. Apparently, I don't know how true this is, having not tested it, there is like an infill type plastic guard which goes around the top of the forks there, and it does improve things massively by all accounts. I can't verify that, having not tried it. I am slightly sceptical, to be honest. I think there is a fundamental flaw with the aerodynamics of the bike. So if you're cruising around about motorway speed, shall we say, it actually makes you feel sick because your head shakes around so violently. You can find a speed, depending on the wind conditions, that is more comfortable, but it is a bit of a killer on this bike, and it is the reason a lot of people don't find them particularly good. It's such a shame because in so many other ways it's superior to its competitors. So that's the first major complaint I've got with it. The wind turbulence is really bad. The second one, there you go, is the throttle, or more specifically the jerkiness of it. It's not a particularly mechanical problem with the throttle or the setup or the fuel injection. It's again a massive known issue with the Crosstourer is how hypersensitive that throttle is. If you're on rough terrains or even a moderately bumpy road, it does become very, very, very jerky, to the point where sometimes you have to apply a bit of rear brake. Otherwise you're like a kangaroo in a mating season. There is a number of cures too. I actually took it back to Honda and said I can't really get on with this. The mechanic did adjust the linkages for the fuel injection, both ends, the fuel injection end and the twist grip itself. I'd say it's improved it. I wouldn't say it's resolved the issue, but it is now acceptable. Again, another major sort of downside to this bike. So fuel capacity 21.5 litres, which Honda say is usable. I have got more than that in there, so I'm not completely sure where that number comes from. Realistic range about 170 miles. That's a combination of town and motorway riding plus a bit of A and B road riding. The paint quality is again off the charts. It is one of, I think, Honda's best built bikes of late. And certainly judging by their recent products, it's certainly better built than the modern stuff, but you do pay for it. One of the issues with this bike is that the price, and generally speaking, if you can afford £12,000 for a bike, you can stretch to 15, and then things like the GS become more tempting. I do understand that. Only difference I've made with this bike is I've got the RNG engine cover, or clutch side cover. Again, we'll come back to that point in a minute. There's a reason behind that. Now, the major plus point to this bike, and again, I will probably upset a few GS owners, subject to that fuel injection slash snotty, that's probably quite close actually, snatchy throttle. The engine is absolutely incredible. It will pull trees over if you want it to. Honda quote a fairly high torque figure for it. I think it's 110 newton meters or something like that. It feels like more than that. I've had GS's, 1150s, 1200s, 1250s. I've had boosters, Blackbirds, everything, and this is in a completely different category torque-wise. It's got an abundance of torque, although the engine is a bit Honda and a bit lacking in character. Torque-wise, it is absolutely incredible, and I think probably the best point of the whole bike. Exhaust, completely standard this bike have on the engine cover. It is very quiet. Next video I'll do the riding video and include the sound in that one, but it is very, very Honda, I'm afraid. The rear wheel, absolutely incredible. Again, quality wise, it is in a different league to, sorry, BMW owners, again, the GS. Although clearly it's designed to copy it, and it works in exactly the same way, to be honest, in the way it unbolts. The quality again is incredible. I've ridden this in bad weather, good weather, all year round. There's still not a mark on them. Now the shaft drive itself, now this is a bit more complicated, this one. The shaft is good. It's not as good as the BMW shaft, but what makes it feel worse is that snatchy throttle. If the throttle was good, it would be a good shaft. So it's two things that are, I would say, reasonable. Working together in a bad way, they don't work well together. Like a lot of married couples, they have their issues. It does get better as you get used to it, but when I first got this, it was close to going back within a few weeks. Since Honda did that slight adjustment to the throttle, I have got used to it over the last year, and now actually I can be fairly smooth with it. So I do agree with people that say, you know, you do get used to it. You do. It is an issue. If you first test rode one of these, you wouldn't like it. You do get used to it. And after a year I can ride it as smooth as any other bike. And the actual build quality of the whole unit, as I said before, it's what attracted me to the bike. It is almost as good as the Blackbird, and that's a lot of praise to say, because the Blackbird, from my point of view, is still one of the best built bikes ever made, if not the best built bike, and certainly Honda sadly have gone backwards since then. This is coated in ACF 50 from day one. I have ridden this all year round, and as you can see, the finish is pretty much unmarked. I do wash it regularly, to be fair, and put ACF 50 back on it every sort of third or fourth wash. But as you can see from it, 4,500 miles in, it's pretty much as new. Rear shock and rear suspension, again, another known weaker point of these. It's adjustable for preload just here, which, to be fair, does make a difference. It actually does work, which is a refreshing change. It's also adjustable for, oh, there we go, if we can get under there, you might be able to just see it up there. Rebound as well. Rear shock, I'll give it a 6 out of 10. It's average. A couple of suspension companies, Mupo being one of them, do a fork internals change, which I will do when the PCP runs out. And the rear shock as well does need changing. Just mainly for the control. It's not really a damping issue. The speed of the damping somewhere inside the shock is not what it should be. It achieves a remarkable talent of being underdamped and overdamped both at the same time, being crashy in some senses and then being too bouncy in others. So it's a unique setup they've got in there. You can adjust it around to get it reasonable, which I've done now. Ironically, I've taken some rebound out of it and put 2 clicks of compression on there. Not compression, because it hasn't got that, preload, sorry. And it seems about as good as you're going to get it. What else can we say about the Crosstourer in terms of negatives? Right, here comes the big one, guys. I'm not going to hold back on this one. The weight is ridiculous. It's 287 quoted on the curb, which is half a tank of fuel. So with a full tank of fuel, your sandwiches in the top box, you're pushing over 300 kilos, and because it's a V4, that weight is fairly high up, and it feels like more than 300. If you're not used to a big heavy bike, and even if you are, you will find this extraordinarily heavy, particularly at the top. I have dropped it, I'm not going to lie, that's why the engine cover's there. There's a tiny mark on the clutch cover, which is £290 for a new clutch cover, and I refuse to pay that. So I got this R&G one, which fits incredibly well. It's about 70 quid, I think. And in all likelihood, it's probably going to go over again at some point, so it's just not worth changing the cover. It happened just taking it off the stand. I was on Cobblestone Road over in Bournemouth and it tipped away from me about 3 or 4 degrees, classic mistake, and any other bike you probably would have saved it. But because my foot slipped on the wet cobblestones, over she went, there was no saving it. Only damage was that clutch cover, luckily. It is a known issue with these, so the 3 big faults, so that's screen / the wind turbulence, the throttle connection or overreactive throttle, which I agree with, and the weight, which I agree with. Now, when compared with other big adventure bikes, I'd say this is an adventure styled bike. I wouldn't say it's got a lot of off-road ability. I have tried it. I'm not an off-road expert by a long way. But it comes down to a combination of those bad throttle connection and the weight. Those 2 things working against you do make it very, very challenging off-road. So it's more of a sort of styling exercise really, rather than ability. But I think personally it's a nice looking bike. I'm not going to bother blanking my number plate out. I don't really care what people think about my number plate, or if you want to go and check if it's taxed or not, knock yourself out. I can reassure you it is. The big selling point of these, and again I know I've said it 3 or 4 times, is the build quality. It is, again, sorry other people, but I think this is probably the last of the properly built Hondas. It was never a huge seller. Honda do still officially list it, but it's Euro 4 compliant, so I'm not sure how they're going to manage that, because Euro 5 is the current legislation even. So I'm not quite sure why Honda still list it. I guess it's pre-reg deals out there. The reason why I say the quality is so exceptional is, again, I know I keep talking about the wheels, but they're absolutely incredible. The fit and finish of all the panels, the little Honda clips they use, which are horrifically expensive to buy from Honda. The quality of the plastics, the levers, the switch gear is proper clicky switch gear. Unlike the GS, again, sorry GS guys. The engine casings, you can't see that side because it's got the cover on it obviously. Absolutely incredible. There is not a mark on them. This has got the full aluminium diamond frame on it. Again, a fairly heavy unit, but it is as strong as a girder bridge. Rear brakes are opposed sliding twin. And again, they're very, very usable for the bike. They're not massively sharp, but they are very controllable. The side stand, if you're built like Arnie, then yes, you can use the side stand, which I do most times. It is a technique. And once you've got the technique, it's fairly straightforward. So in terms of actual riding then, what's it like? Again, the engine is massively the dominating feature of the bike. It has got so much torque, the gearbox is largely irrelevant, it just changes the noise really. It pulls in any gear you want from any revs. It does get a bit chuggy below about 40 in top, but that's one of those things that you can just change gear and solve that problem. The engine's incredible and the real sort of star point of the bike. Again, styling being another one. It's a really good looking bike, I think. Like anything, you catch it from 1 or 2 angles, it can look a bit strange, but generally speaking, adventure bikes aren't the best looking bikes on the road. But I bought this to use all the time, and it's my main workhorse really. I do look after my machines, as you can see. 2 up, fantastic. My daughter loves it, she's only 10 years old. And she loves this bike, finds it really comfortable. And the top box is nice and strong and sturdy, so she does lean against that. So what's this got in terms of modifications or changes? None, other than that clutch cover. Reasons are, 1, it's on a PCP agreement, so you can't really change much. And 2, you don't need to. Issue number 3 is the cost of it. Honda accessories are notoriously overpriced, although they are good quality. I don't know quite how they justify around £400 for a top box with the plates and the key match. It is plastic covered by like an aluminium cover, it's not an aluminium top box. It's not called a crash bar by the Honda people because it's not certified crash protection. It's called a light mounting unit or something, or decorative light mounting ring or something. It is a crash bar, it works as a crash bar fine. I've tested that bit definitely. And I'm really pleased I had it on there. Servicing costs every 8,000 miles on this one, or yearly, which in most people's case is yearly. First service cost about 130 quid, so Again, another advantage over the GS is servicing costs. Discs on this are £110 each. I know on the GS that might make your heart skip a beat, but it's about 3 times that for a disc on a GS, so good luck with that, guys, when that comes up. So my overall kind of summary before we take it for a ride, I can understand why it was never a great seller. Again, if you can afford £13,000 for a Honda, most people want the GS if they get that sort of budget. The GS, is it a better bike? Quality wise, I'm going to say no. Reliability wise, definitely a no. Sorry guys. Looking wise, subjective, I think this is better looking. Equipment levels wise, this is very basic, which to be honest is no bad thing. It's got traction control and ABS. Honda call it 4 levels, but it's not, it's 3 levels and off, which is just done by the button there on the fairing. And what does really impress me with this is the general fit and finish of things like the switch gear, which I know people talk about a lot, but it does matter because it's one of your tactile points. Hydraulic clutch on these. The dash is fairly basic, I will show you that. It is LCD, and the early versions have got a very slightly different layout, but it's very, very basic dash really, but it does tell you what you need to know, nothing more. Let's turn that off. So, as an overall ranking out of 10, I've had over 100 bikes. I'll give this a solid 8 out of 10 as an overall. If there is a way of fixing that throttle, I will find it and I will get it done, because it would transform what is a good bike into an amazing bike. The slightly weird thing with these is when they're in neutral, they only run 2 injectors. So it idles really low, just over 1,000, and it sounds like it's going to stall. Even for a V4, it never will stall, but it's really, really low. And as soon as you put it into first gear, even with the clutch in, it picks up to about 1400 RPM, somewhere around there. I guess it's like a version of anti-stall type thing, or probably for the emissions, but it is slightly weird in that aspect, but it's a fantastic machine, guys. It really is. Handling wise, actually very, very good. Once you get it set up for your style and find a set of tyres that work for you, I'm not in the business of recommending other tyres because I'm a Bridgestone guy for no reason other than I've always used them. I find them good. A couple of my mates go for Dunlops, or one even likes Avon, but he's very strange. Michelin PR5s, you can get those in these sizes, again a popular tyre. I'm not going to say that I can exercise the limits of any tyre, it's just a personal preference and a confidence thing. And I find these Bridgestone Battle Wings very good. So what we'll do next, guys, we'll jump on board, we'll take a ride. Please drop any comments or any questions you've got about the Crosstourer. They are massively underrated, and I understand the reasons behind Honda effectively withdrawing it, or not making it Euro 5. Never a big seller. Although when I bought this, the guys at Crescent Honda were really pleased that they'd sold one, because finally someone appreciated what the good qualities are. And when the PCP is up, I will be doing a few changes to it to make it the bike it should be. So I hope you've enjoyed the little walk around, guys. Again, any questions, any comments, any queries or wonderings or advice about the Crosstourer, do let me know. I'll do my best to answer them. So next plan is we'll jump aboard it, we'll show you what it's like on board. Thanks now.